Good afternoon to everyone. Today we are going again about culture, and here we have to find the answers for the questions. What is culture? What are the components of culture? What is cultural diversity? Many ways of life in one world, and theoretical analysis of culture. And let's start with the first term, what is culture? As we know, culture includes food and drink, business, politics, routines, social life, towns. And if you pay attention while investigating, while analyzing the term culture itself, it is the most important concept. We can find that this is the most important concept in the social sciences. It includes the values, beliefs, behaviors, and material objects that together form a people's way of life. And here we must know what is non-material and what is material culture. So non-material, that this is the beliefs and ideas created by the members in a certain society. Material, it is the tangible objects created by the members of a society. It includes the items a society finds of value. Here, what is the correlation among the term culture, nation, and society? We know that culture, it exists where people live. It exists where is a society, and culture is a shared way of life. And nation is a political entity, and a society is the organized interaction of people in a nation. If we link them with each other, firstly, you can put the nation, then it's the culture, and all of them are combined in society. Each one of these concepts is important to sociolinguists, sociologists. Now let's pay attention to the components of culture. Culture is comprised of 5 different components. They are symbols, language, values, beliefs, and norms. Material culture now includes technology. Symbols. We know that in different cultures, there are different symbols which can give information about some events, about something, about some feelings, about some attitudes, being in the same society or being in the same culture. Now symbols, anything that stands for or represents something else. This includes symbolic words, phrases, and images associated with social movements and ideologies, which can evoke powerful images and emotional reactions. The next component of the culture is language. The key to the world of culture, a system of symbols that allows people to communicate with one another. Cultural transmission, it is also one component of the culture, and it is a process by which one generation passes culture to the next. What does it mean? If you pay attention to the Uzbek culture, we have our inherited cultural valid cultural identities. For example, respecting elderly people, greeting, different ways of greeting according to the age of our speaker, according to the situation, according to the atmosphere. And the next one is values. Values also, they are also one component of culture, and the values are a collective conception of that which is desirable. This conception usually has both emotional and symbolic components. Values may range from those that are subjectively meaningful to a given individual to those that are shared cultural norms. Beliefs also, Beliefs are also one component of culture, and it is specific statements that people hold to be true. Key values of US culture. Now let's compare what are the key values of US culture let's compare with Uzbek one. Equal opportunity. What does it mean? So society should provide everyone with a chance to get ahead according to individual talents and efforts. It means that today we are living in the period of globalization. There are some countries that you can watch or you can observe some gender issues. In most Muslim countries, women don't work, they are not allowed to work, and their duty is just to give birth of their children, to upbring, and to support their children or to educate them. And achievement and success, what does it mean? So achievement and success, our way of life encourages competition that each person's worth should reflect personal merit. Material comfort. Success in the US generally means making money and enjoying what it will buy. But according to our culture, if we compare US culture with Uzbek one, the most important aspect of our culture is paying attention to the upbringing children, paying attention to keeping cultural norms, cultural identities, and all of them are very important. Activity and work. Our culture values action over reflection and controlling events over passively accepting one's fate. Practicality and efficiency. People in the US value the practicality over the theoretical or doing or dreaming. Progress. The US culture celebrates progress, equating the very latest with the very best. Science. The US has a cultural tendency to devalue emotion and intuition as sources of knowledge. Democracy and enterprise. We believe that a just political system is based on free elections in which adults select their leaders and on an economy that responds to the choices of individual consumers. Freedom. Our cultural value of freedom means that we place a higher value on individual initiative than on collective conformity. If we pay attention to our education system, we can say that being as a teacher, if we compare this case with the education, individual approach, it plays a great role in teaching, because while working in groups, you can see some passive learners, some passive students that only working individually can help more and more. And this is also one side how to achieve success. And the next one is racism and group superiority. Despite strong notions about individualism and freedom, most people in the US still evaluate individuals according to gender, race, ethnicity, and social class. Norms. Rules and expectations by which a society guides the behavior of its members. Prescriptive. What shouldn't be done, and Prescriptive, what should be done. If we compare prescriptive and prescriptive, they are just do's and don'ts of the culture. It means that what as a member, what you must do, and as a member, what is banned or what isn't allowed to do. This is prescriptive. Prescriptive. Mores are also norms that are widely observed and have great moral significance. For these norms that are routine and casual interaction. Social control, various means by which members of society encourage conformity to norms. Ideal and real culture. Values and norms tell us how to behave. They don't take into account all the different variables in one's life. Rather, they inform us of how we should behave. In this case, we must pay attention to some points of society that there are some relationships that must be compared, must be analyzed, and must be observed. For example, we know that there are some written and unwritten or rules which are do's and don'ts, which are called as norms of society. And these norms are called as components of culture. And while observing, we have to compare, for example, the role of men and women, or the attitudes toward the children in the culture or in the society, or the role of cultural identity, how to preserve cultural identity, what materials can be useful or can be supportive in order to instigate some cultures. In this case, we must observe, we must investigate some sources, some materials in order to find the answer. And here, as a member of the same society, we know how to behave, how to communicate, and how to conduct, for example, communication. These are all dependent on the views, outlooks of the members of the society. And cultural diversity, high culture. What does high culture mean? High culture refers to people who the socially elite of society, those going to the opera and attending symposiums. Popular culture is a cultural patterns that are widespread among society's population. Here again, I want to mention that these are about US culture, because we know that according to our outlook, we assess high culture with our traditional and national songs, music like Shashmakom, Horazm Nazgisi, Khoro, Mavrigi, and others. For us, these are high culture because they are passing from one generation to another, and in future also we inherited for our future generation. And that's why they are called as a high culture, which are highly valuable and which are highly assessed as a component of our culture. Popular culture. It is the cultural patterns that are widespread among society's population. Subculture, cultural patterns that set apart some segment of society's population. For example, skateboarders, bowlers, young people who listen to rap music, people who like to go two-stepping, or sandcastle builders. If we pay attention to them, according to their taste, according to their choice, we can just categorize subcultures. For example, this group of people, they like they are bowlers, that's why they like bowling. Or this young people's group, they mostly listen to rap music, and they just they just want to listen to such kind of rap music. And by this way, you can categorize the same culture into subcultures. Multiculturalism, an education program recognizing the cultural diversity of the US and promoting the equality of all cultural traditions. Eurocentrism, the dominance of European cultural patterns. Afrocentrism, the dominance of African cultural patterns. Counterculture, cultural patterns that strongly oppose those widely accepted within a society. Cultural integration, the close relationships among various elements of a cultural system. They are just the cultural patterns, for example, in the same culture, in the same community, in the same society, they differentiate. Inventions of today. Invention, this is the process of creating new cultural elements. For example, if we pay attention, telephone was invented in 1876. Airplane was invented at the beginning of the 20th century, which is dated as 1903. Computer was invented in late 1940s. So these are also very important for culture because we know that if we compare today's life with past 30s or 20s, you can see a big difference. Because of technology, because of way of living, because of viewpoints, they just differ. And also, that's why we can say that inventions also play a great role in culture. The next one is ethnocentrism, the practice of judging another culture by the standards of one's own culture. Cultural relativism, so the practice of evaluating a culture by its own standards. Global culture, the global economy, the flow of goods, global communication, the flow of information, global migration, the flow of people, theoretical analysis of culture. So structural functional analysis, the structural functional paradigm depicts culture as a complex strategy for meeting human needs. Culture values give meaning to life and bind people together. Other aspects of culture function in various ways that support the way of life. Cultural universals, traits that are part of every known culture. In 1945, Georgia Murdoch identified dozens of cultural universals, family which controls reproduction and oversee the care of children, funeral rites. Every community copes with death jokes, which are universal and serve as a safe means to ease social tension. Social conflict analysis. These paradigms stress the link between culture and inequality. From this point of view, any culture trait benefits some members of society at the expense of others. A conflict analysis could begin by asking why certain values dominate a society in the first place. Social conflict theory is rooted in the philosophical doctrine of materialism, which holds that a society's system of material production, such as our own industrial capitalist economy, has a powerful effect on the rest of the culture. Social biology, a theoretical paradigm that explores the ways in which human biology affects how we create culture. Culture and human freedom. Underlying the discussion in this chapter is an important question: to what extent are cultural creatures free? Here we must investigate ourselves as a member of society, as a member of community. To what extent, this is a question to you, to what extent are cultural creatures free? Here we must pay attention to those creatures which we have mentioned above, and that investigation, I think, that helps greatly in order to find, or in order to solve the question. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.